James is a really awesome guy. As you know, he's been a guest on our show multiple times. And this is what he had to expose when it came to the Meidas Touch brothers.
Meidas Touch, the podcast that dethroned Joe Rogan, is not really what you think it is. Let me explain. So Meidas Touch, they claim to be an independent news network and also unapologetically pro-democracy. But then their entire channel is basically just Trump sucks. An ugly collapse. Stay awake, Donald. Beg for mercy, Donald. I guess this is enjoyable for some people. But regardless, if you like Trump, don't like Trump, doesn't matter. The whole entire thing is a huge grift for money. The editor-in-chief, Ron Filipkowski, he is one of those Republican turned Democrats, very recent, probably one of the easiest grifts of all time. That grift goes both ways, by the way. There's a lot of other people who make a lot of money going the other direction. But the crazy part is that Filipkowski basically admitted to the press very recently that the whole thing is just a business play. Quote, the Meidas guys as a team said, "We are going to do this to Trump," Filipkowski said. "We are going to hit every gaffe, every mispronunciation, every slurred word, every mispronounced name, every time he mixes up a name. We're going to clip that and we're going to put it out there and we're going to put it in montages."
Tell me exactly how this helps anybody other than them line their pockets.
Well, that's the whole point. But is that any different? Is that any different than mainstream media with Trump the first time? Is it any different than any other media or, normal media outlet that doesn't have any integrity? It's just another one.
Sable, I would have thought for a second that you would have been one of the last people on earth that would have ever fallen for something like Meidas Touch. Just my opinion.
I never heard of it, but I don't even know. I don't know who they are. What? They're a YouTube show?
So before we continue, I think people, for those of you who do not know who Meidas Touch is or who these guys are, they are a trio of brothers.
Like actual brothers or?
Ben Meislis, Brett Meislis, and Jordan Meislis.
Okay, so they are actual brothers, not just saying brothers. Okay.
They are. Their editor-in-chief is Ron Filipkowski, a Florida super conservative turned shit lib because he was anti-Trump. These three brothers are the sons of a very wealthy and influential attorney in the Democratic Party in Los Angeles. And
are you just adding that, or is that what this video is? Is that what James is uncovering, or is that?
No, that's what I'm adding to this right now. For those of you who are not familiar with the Meislis brothers, if you're not familiar with them,
so they're a grift.
1,000 times over. But the reason why this is being mentioned now is because I have my disagreements with Joe Rogan, as I'm sure you do. But the idea that you're going to come out and say that you have a bigger podcast than Joe Rogan, on what grounds?
Well, I don't know the numbers. What are the numbers?
Are they getting 11 to 12 million on average per clip that they put out there, or long form? I don't know. But
well, that's what I'm saying. They must be basing that on something. There must be some number at which they're higher. And I have never, ever, ever had a single problem with Joe Rogan. Not even ever. I think he's cool looking. He looks like someone who'd be fun to hang out with. He's curious. He asks interesting questions. He has interesting guests. He doesn't claim to be an authority or a journalist. I think people should just leave him the hell alone. Like, I don't have any problem with Joe Rogan at all. He just, in what way? He's not, I don't know.
The fact that Filipkowski is running this operation for these brothers should come as no surprise to anybody. And of course, Filipkowski is in Tampa Bay, Florida, because of course he is, because they all are. If the grift can happen anywhere, it'll happen in Florida, which sucks.
Why? Because no one else was doing that. Before last August, you can't find a mainstream media story about Trump mispronouncing words and slurring words. They weren't out there. That's just business strategy 101. You identify a gap, and then you fill that gap, and then you make a lot of money. Also, reportedly, they're not allowed to cover subjects like Gaza.
Why? Why? Why would the Meidas brothers not cover Gaza, Jen? Would you care to guess why they wouldn't?
Well, I'm going to assume they're Zios.
Just a little bit. Just
well, but the truth is, the Democratic Party is Zio. If you're aligned with that as a party, as a platform, as a thing, and you make a point of being aligned with that, then you are also in that. So what difference does it make? Of course there's Zios.
You know, the interesting thing about the Bernie AOC tour is that Gaza is not getting mentioned. You think that's a mistake? Or do you think that that's deliberate? I think it's deliberate.
Of course.
Much like the Meidas brothers, who are Jewish and are very much on board with what's going on, but they have an empire that they're trying to build. And they know that addressing the issue of Israel-Palestine is probably not going to be good for business, especially if they're on the side of Israel, which they almost certainly are.
Wonder why that is. And maybe my favorite headline in a while, which I think articulates very nicely the end byproduct of the Meidas Touch grift, is, quote, Meidas Touch turns Democrats' minds to slop. Anyway, just thought people should know about the most popular independent pro-democracy platform on the internet.
James, always doing great work. And why do we highlight that?
And because I love that he's calling it out. He's great. He's good. Yeah.
And he calls out both sides.
Oh, he calls out grift. He calls out bullshit, and he calls out abuses of working people. He calls out, he punches up.
If he's going to call out Ron Filipkowski going from Republican to Democrat, he's going to call out Lindy Lee going from Democrat to Republican. Because in the end, this is all about dollars and cents. If Neera Tanden saw an opportunity to skip parties, go from the Democrats to Republicans, oh, she'd be there with bells on. I remember how derogatory and dismissive and just downright terrible the Democratic Party was to Tulsi Gabbard. But the second Tulsi got in line and endorsed Joe Biden, oh, they loved her. They thought she was wonderful. And now that she found a new path, now they really hate her guts. Much like Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan said that he supported Bernie Sanders. And the Democratic establishment moved heaven and earth to not only disparage Rogan, but to disparage Bernie because somebody like Rogan supports him. And now look where you are. You have no real presence. What the hell is the presence of having a whole bunch of shit libs online support your channel and you act like that's changing anything?
But I think a lot of it isn't real. That's the other thing. How do we know that it's not fake, like K-Hive? How do we know that it's real? I think a lot of it is, even if it's real, it's paid. So, you know, it's paid or whatever. But I don't believe that it's real.